Hey guys, welcome back to Ouch Mountain. And a couple weeks ago we shared with you our family Christmas tradition where we went in search of the perfect Christmas tree and found one for Sarah's mom and dad. This time around we want to share with you our New Year's Eve tradition, which is kind of unique, or at least I think it's kind of unique. I don't know any other families that do this, and that is to camp out on New Year's Eve. If you call it camping out, it's sort of primitive. It's not really don't usually have a tent. It's usually just on the ground with maybe a lean-to, a tarp or something. And so that's what we do on New Year's Eve. And your family's been doing this a long time, right?
We've done it my whole life. People say, why would you camp out on New Year's Eve? And this tradition began when Daddy was just a little boy. One year for Christmas, he received a tent and a sleeping bag for Christmas. And so obviously he went to the woods that New Year's and tried it out. And after that, he and some of his friends would go camp out New Year's Eve. And then as they got older, they would go to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. We live really pretty close to that. And so they would go to the national park and camp out. And then as time went on, he and my mother married and they continued that tradition. And they actually would hike up to the lodge at Mount LeConte, it's about a 5 or 6 mile hike. They would go up the Alum Cave Trail and go with some friends and stay up there and help prepare meals at the lodge. And so my first New Year's Eve was at about 4 months old. I was carried up the Alum Cave Trail in a baby backpack on my daddy's back. Mother said there was snow knee deep, but we went up to the lodge at Mount LeConte, and that's where I spent my first New Year's Eve at about 4 months old.
So in the 29 years that we've been married, we've had cold nights, we've had rainy nights, we've had some really warm nights, and the only time I remember us ever leaving in the middle of the night was one night. It was just storming and lightning. It was really bad and kind of ugly, and we decided we didn't need to be on top of this ridge in a lightning storm, so we got up and left that night. But that's really the only night I remember. Even some very cold nights we've stayed up there wherever we've decided to camp. Usually it's just kind of different places on our property here. What's the coldest you ever remember your family camping out?
Probably the coldest is when I was just a little girl, and I don't remember this real well, but Mother says she can't remember if it was 8 inches of snow on the ground and 10 degrees below zero, or 8 degrees below zero with 10 inches of snow on the ground. Either way, it's pretty cold. But she said that, Daddy built the perfect fire and he chose the perfect spot. There was this big boulder on the side of a hill, and so he built the fire in front of that so that the heat would kind of reflect off of that and keep us warm throughout the night. And she said the next morning when we woke up, that boulder had a crack in it, and probably because the fire was so hot, the rock was so cold that it split the rock during the night. But that is probably the coldest. I remember one year, since we've been married, It was about 14 degrees out and there was snow on the ground that year. But oftentimes the weather is kind of mild. You just never know what you're gonna get on New Year's Eve.
And that really cold night was probably down in Hemlock Hollow, right? Which
Yes.
is a really cool, neat place, especially when all the hemlocks were there. But it can be pretty cold because all the air sinks. It's kind of down in a little hollow in between mountains. It's a cool place, but it's a pretty cold place to camp out on New Year's Eve. But I know in the time we've been together, we've had some cold nights, and since the boys have been here, Eli's 22 and Seth is 18, and we've just kind of continued that tradition of camping out, and they love it. Even now, they come back and they stay, and instead of going out with friends on New Year's Eve, they camp out with us, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, they really enjoy it, but they've been doing it since they were babies. Eli was about 6 months old, his first New Year's Eve out, and Seth was about 9 months old, so they don't know much different than that, but they enjoy camping out on New Year's Eve.
So this year, Eli he went out and bought a new backpacking tent, and he hadn't tried it out yet, so he wanted to try it out this year just to see how it slept. So he did that this year, and so you'll see what we did, see how we set up camp, and y'all stay with us. So that is our New Year's family tradition, camping out under the stars with the family and the dogs and the sleeping bags and a good fire, and it's always a lot of fun. This year it was pretty mild, didn't get very cold on us, but it did get pretty windy. We had a lot of wind. We had probably 30 to 40 mile-an-hour gusts, and as you saw, the tarp was blowing back and forth there. We did have ground stakes holding it down, but probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, those had completely come out of the ground, and the wind would blow one way and the tarp would blow and back and forth and hit us in the face, and it was kind of hard to sleep the last couple of hours before the sun came up. But it was still a lot of fun. And if you have a unique family tradition for New Year's Eve, share it with us. We'd love to hear about it. Put it in the comments, and we love getting those comments. Keep those coming. But also, if you enjoy this video, click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share it with a friend. And we will see you next time on Ouch Mountain.